because of that shame and stigma and the colonial project, the rising HIV rates continue within Indigenous communities.
Tonight, HIV/AIDS are on the rise in Canada, especially with Indigenous people. Why that is.
This budget was rolled out in a very different way than previous budgets. So in fact, there's a full chapter in the book on reconciliation.
More talk about the budget and why Indigenous people and reconciliation weren't mentioned.
We sort of realized the combination of our families were rich for comedic possibility. We've got a lot of characters in our lives.
And a new comedy is set to premiere in Winnipeg this week. Good evening, I'm Savannah Kelly. Welcome to APTN National News. The BC Prosecution Office has announced that there will be no charges against 3 RCMP officers in the death of a man in 2021. APTN's Tina House has this story.
This doesn't end here. It's not over. It's time for Canada to stop protecting their gunmen who have been slaughtering our people for decades. Centuries since contact.
It's been an emotional day for Laura Holland and her supporters, as they were just informed that 3 RCMP officers will not be facing any charges in the death of her son, 38-year-old Jared Lowndes, father of 2.
It has been 1,020 days that I have waited to hear what proposed charges might be, and there are none.
In 2021, Jared Lowndes was boxed in by police while in a Tim Hortons drive-thru in Campbell River, BC. They were there to serve a warrant, but things quickly escalated. A police dog was sent into the vehicle, and the dog was killed by Lowndes. Police then deployed a taser, then opened fire and killed Lowndes in his vehicle. Last year, we interviewed the head of the Independent Investigations Office about the Lowndes case.
I consider all of the actions of police, and I have to determine whether or not I believe there are reasonable grounds to believe that the police may have committed an offense, and more particularly whether their actions were justified at law. And in this case, I've determined that there are reasonable grounds to believe that 3 officers may have committed an offense.
Despite those recommendations, the BC Prosecution Office released this statement. The available evidence does not meet the BCPS's charges assessment standard. The BCPS is not able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the officers committed any offense in relation to the incident. As a result, no charges have been approved. Neil Chandler is the Lowndes family lawyer.
If not this case, it's hard to imagine a case meeting the charge approval standard. This was a case that we all thought clearly met that standard from the outside, and that would see a trial. And this is one of those cases where we would like to have seen justice be done.
For Laura, she is determined to keep fighting for justice for her son.
My next step is to burn it all down. I'm going to make sure that there are changes to policy and procedure.
Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
The Canadian Foundation for AIDS Research says that HIV/AIDS is on the rise in Canada, and more must be done to stop the spread of the disease. APTN's Tina House has this story.
These names on this memorial wall represent someone's loved one. They were mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews, and friends. HIV and AIDS is a worldwide epidemic, with 37 million people infected with AIDS.
AIDS, or acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, is a disease in which the human immune system is severely impaired. It's caused by the human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV, and is the last stage of the virus's infection. Scientists believe that HIV originated in West Central Africa, where a similar virus was found in chimpanzees and gorillas. Around the turn of the 20th century, the virus was transmitted to humans due to the handling of chimpanzee meat. The virus then spread from the African continent during the mid-1960s through a single carrier, eventually making its way around the world.
Jeff Rock is with the Canadian Foundation for AIDS Research. He says the latest numbers are alarming.
Canada currently is the only G7 country that still has a rising HIV/AIDS rate. Every other major country, every other G7 country in the world has managed to decline their HIV rate, but for some reason the rates keep going up here in Canada.
Rock says that research shows that despite all the educational tools available, colonialism has a lot to do with the rising numbers for Indigenous people. Statistics Canada says that from 2020 to 2021, there was a 24% increase in new infections, and that number is continuing to climb.
A lot of shame and stigma was brought with settler peoples to this country, and I think because of that shame and stigma in the colonial project, the rising HIV rates continue within Indigenous communities and other marginalized communities, the 2S LGBTQAI community, other racialized communities as well. And so I think if we want to address the HIV rate in Canada, we need to continue the process of not only decolonization, but destigmatization.
Jesse Dame works with a community-based research center.
A lot of it is still not community-led. We like to speak about things being community-led, but a lot of the investment still focuses on the physical aspects of HIV prevention, which is absolutely important, but we need to continue down the path of mental, emotional, and spiritual connection to really look at prevention strategies for Indigenous folks.
Rock says there are easy solutions for those to get tested and then seek medications.
You can order through the mail a self-testing kit. There's a 1-800 number you can call and somebody will walk you through the test and you can get the results within minutes. Those are readily available to the most rural of Canadians and small towns through Canada Post, right up to anybody here in major cities. We have all of the tools in our toolkit to treat HIV, to get viral loads under control and down to zero so that, that it's untransmittable. We have all the toolkits. So nowadays, people aren't dying of AIDS at the same rates that they used to. People still are. It is still a serious condition that you need to get tested and treated for. But at the same time, it's not the life sentence that it used to be.
Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
The Interlake Reserve's Tribal Council in Manitoba say they've removed a chief accused of child sex crimes from their board of directors. Also known as the IRTC, the organization is a partnership of 7 First Nations in Manitoba's Interlake region. Lake St. Martin's Chief Chris Travers sat on their board of directors. He was recently charged with 4 offenses against an elementary school-aged child, including possessing and making child pornography. In a press release, states that the IRTC unequivocally condemns the actions alleged in the charges and that they stand in support of the community. Lake St. Martin Councillor Brad Beardy will act as the interim board member. A media spokesperson for the band office says Travers is still chief of the First Nation, but that a closed community meeting will be taking place this Thursday to address how to move forward. The Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations visited Nova Scotia on Tuesday. He was there to talk about the budget, reconciliation, and the Métis Bill C-35. Angel Moore reports.
Last week, Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland announced the federal budget. Her speech was criticized for not mentioning Indigenous people or reconciliation, but Crown Indigenous Relations Minister Gary Anna-Desangare says reconciliation is a priority.
This budget was rolled out in a very different way than previous budgets. So in fact, there's a full chapter in the book on reconciliation. Today itself is our day on reconciliation to be announcing very specific items. The Prime Minister himself is making these announcements, as well as other ministers from across Canada.
Anna-Desangare spoke at a press conference held at Acadia University in Wolfville, Nova Scotia, about 80 kilometers northwest of Halifax. The event was to highlight the budget investments towards reconciliation. APTN News asked Anna-Desangare about Bill C-53. If passed, it will recognize the Métis organizations of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ontario as self-governing bodies. It has been fiercely opposed by First Nations in Ontario, and last week, the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan withdrew its support.
Well, we received notice from President McCallum and the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan. We are looking at next steps, and I'm waiting to hear advice from both our policy team as well as our legal advisors, and I think as we consult, we will figure out what the next steps ought to be.
Angel Moore, APTN National News, Wolfville, Nova Scotia.
We asked him to whisper.
The Ontario government has announced $500,000 in funding for critical needs in Yabmitung First Nation. The funding comes 3 months after the nation's only school was razed by a fire. Half of the money will go towards community needs and to support students. This includes transition supports for grade 9 students who typically move to Thunder Bay for high school, about 350 kilometers south of the fly-in community. The John C. Yes-No Education Center was destroyed by a fire on January 25th, displacing 300 K-9 students. 4 youths have been charged in connection with the fire. In February, the federal government announced $13 million to build a temporary school. Funding announced today by the Ontario government will also go towards the community's needs related to mental health and emergency food security needs made worse by the fire. We want to hear what you think about this or any other story you see here tonight. Here's how to continue the conversation. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. You can find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. After the break, we'll tell you about a digital solution to revitalizing Indigenous languages. Plus, a comedic play about Métis settler family dynamics is premiering in Winnipeg.
And we're talking specifically about the Métis people in this play, and yeah, and it's just kind of where I see us in the world at this point.
Welcome back to APTN National News. The solution to revitalizing Indigenous languages is a digital one. Over the last few years, researchers at the National Research Council developed technology to assist educators in revitalizing languages in their communities. APTN's Maricela Amador spoke with the NRC to learn more about the project and what the future holds.
For many communities, revitalizing their language is of the utmost importance. Brian Maracle is the project director of a Mohawk immersion program in 6 nations. He was one of the first educators to collaborate with the National Research Council, or NRC, on the Indigenous Languages Technology Project.
They just called us out of the blue one day to ask if there was something that they could do that would be of a help to us, that would be in the field of digitizing the language. And so I said yes.
Maracle had the perfect tool in mind.
To create a digital verb generator, something that would take all the components of the language and allow a computer to put together all of those elements to create verbal descriptions.
He explained that due to the complexity of the Mohawk language, a resource was needed that would enable students to generate verbs and form basic sentences.
We started working on it and produced this app called Gawanunis, which translates to "it makes words."
Although there are limitations to the software and enhancements are necessary, Maracle said the app has been very helpful for students.
It's speech generation for Indigenous language education.
Dr. Roland Kuhn is heading the project at the NRC.
We talk to teachers particularly, and sometimes we can agree on a way we can write software that will help them and help their students. And all our projects have worked that way.
Through the project, the NRC and its partners have developed speech and text-based technologies that contribute to language revitalization.
We set out the principle that none of the language data we work with will ever belong to anyone other than the community itself. But we have to be very careful never to come across as, we're saving the languages. We're not. The educators are saving the language. We're just trying to help them when we can.
Currently, there are 6 feature projects at various stages of development, but funding is always an issue.
You can see that most of them are from Canada.
Dr. Kuhn hopes the project continues for years to come.
Our goal would be to help people in the communities who know the language, each language well, to be able to build their own interactive grammars.
Heather Suter is an educator from Camperville, Manitoba. She worked with the NRC on a Michif digital talking dictionary and an online language course.
We've been able to move things forward and make improvements to the dictionary, for example, that we first started with. And we still have work that we need to do in the course. We haven't done too much on the course to revise it, but that's something that's in our sights.
And just like Maracle, Suter said that the tools have helped language learners immensely.
The work of language revitalization is enhanced by these digital tools, but it's still the people, it's still the community that do the work and have to do the work.
Although this new technology is helping, learning a language takes time and effort.
There is no substitute, nothing better than a student sitting face-to-face with a speaker, an instructor.
Maricela Amador, APTN National News, Montreal.
A comedic play about Métis settler family dynamics is premiering in Winnipeg this week. Reporter Sierra Bettens caught up with the playwrights ahead of the show.
This week, a play about the clash of two worlds will have its world premiere at the Royal Manitoba Theatre Centre in Winnipeg. Created by playwrights and spouses, Sam Vint and Trish Cooper, the comeback chronicles the union of Métis and settler families, a story not unlike their own.
We sort of realized the combination of our families, we're rich for comedic possibility. We've got a lot of characters in our lives.
The play follows Jessie, played by Gwendolyn Collins, and Adam, played by Corey Wojcik, who are from settler and Métis backgrounds, respectively. After the birth of their child, they must navigate the awkward and often hilarious family dynamics that arise.
He's an Indigenous guy who's not super serious. He doesn't seem to take anything too seriously and is just fumbling through life. And then he meets Jessie, who's a little more on the ball and tries to get him in line.
That's not true at all. I'm just kidding. She just comes from sort of a more privileged white family, and she's used to doing things a certain way. And his family, Adam's family, is, kind of raucous and unpredictable and wonderful and loving. And so it's just, trying to navigate that, those family dynamics that, many families have.
The story is loosely based on the couple's relationship and familial ties. Vince says the production borrowed the title from the John Ralston Saul book of the same name.
He talks about how Canada is actually very Indigenous as a nation and how Indigenous people are on the comeback right now. So, and we're talking specifically about the Métis people in this play, and and it's just kind of where I see us in the world at this point.
Taking place in Manitoba, the duo says the play is firmly grounded in place, something they hope local audiences will appreciate.
What makes it unique is the characters, and this is a Winnipeg play, this is, you will recognize, we talk about places in town and a little bit of history, and it's like, yeah, if you're from this town, you'll find something of interest in here.
The comeback is on stage at the Royal Manitoba Theatre Centre from now until May 18th. Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
We need to take one more quick break. Coming up, we'll tell you about a First Nations aerospace training program getting a $17 million boost from a big aircraft company. Plus, how a photo of Manitoba's Premier changing attire has sparked a series of viral online memes.
This is good because it makes you stay humble, right?
Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Enjoying a nice spring sunset from Ebb and Flow, Manitoba. Thank you to Lucille Paul for sharing this picture with us today. If you want to be featured as our photo of the day, email your pictures to share@aptn.ca. Now, let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting off on the East Coast, 6 degrees and sunshine for Halifax, 4 degrees in Charlottetown. -9 for Kuujjuaq, Nain, snowy and -4. Quebec City, 7 degrees and sunshine there, Val-d'Or, +9. Sarnia, sunshine, 13 degrees, Sault Ste. Marie, +8. Kapuskasing, sunshine, 12 degrees, Sioux Lookout, 16 above. Churchill, 0 degrees, mix of sun and cloud, Norway House, +15. Winnipeg, 22 degrees and sunshine there, Barons River plus 17. Regina, rainy and 21 degrees, North Battleford plus 18. Stony Rapids, flurries, 3 degrees there, Buffalo Narrows, 15 degrees. 17 degrees, mix of sun and cloud for Fort McMurray, Peace River plus 13. Calgary, 16 degrees, mix of sun and cloud, Medicine Hat, 21. Vancouver, rainy and 11 degrees, Bella Coola plus 16. Prince Rupert, 11 degrees there, Sandspit, sunshine and 10 degrees. Whitehorse, 15 degrees, Dawson, sunshine and 16. Wrigley, snowy, 5 degrees, Wati, mix of sun and cloud, 0 degrees there. Colville Lake, mostly sunny and -9, Paulatuck, -16. Baker Lake, snowy and -9, Chesterfield, -11. Aglulik, snowy and -17, and Joe Haven, mostly cloudy there and -17. The Boeing Aircraft Company says they're investing $17 million in the Saskatchewan Indian Institute of Technology's Aerospace Training and Education program. The investment will be going towards expanding class sizes at the Saskatchewan Indian Institute of Technology's Aviation Learning Center in Saskatoon. The program offers students hands-on education in aircraft maintenance engineering. Boeing and SIIT have been partners for 10 years. Jeremy Harrison is Saskatchewan's Minister of Trade and Export Development. He says with Boeing's help, the program will nearly double in size.
Which is going to mean jobs for people here in Saskatchewan and opportunities for young people to get into a very, very exciting industry.
If you're on social media, you may have seen a picture of Manitoba Premier Wab Canoe changing a tire on the side of the highway. Canoe said a family member in front of them blew out a tire after attending a funeral in Little Saskatchewan First Nation. He immediately got out to help. People on social media have since shared that picture numerous times, showing their pride and appreciation for Canoe's generosity and leadership. Now that picture has since turned into a fun and lighthearted internet meme, with pictures of Premier Canoe picking berries, making an Indian taco, gutting a moose, or even milking a cow. Canoe says he appreciates all the fun and lighthearted posts and shares a few laughs with his staff and family.
This is good because it makes you stay humble, right? Like, you're never going to be accused of acting too good if people are making memes and keeping you down to earth, right?
Some of those Photoshop jobs looked pretty realistic, I must say. And that's all the time we have for your midweek news. Seems like a good place to leave off tonight. For news anytime, visit our website at aptnnews.ca. I'm Savannah Kelly, Marcy Miigwech. Thank you for joining us. Have a great night.